Hello, and welcome. God, I got a big old smile on my face because, of that intro every single time
That
I
is a
listen to it.
throwback. That is a
And
throwback.
I need to go in and actually put some of the new art and stuff on it and things like that. But welcome. My name is Turmentic. This is the one, the only, the fabulous Dean from the Hobby Podcast. And this is Let's Talk MetaZoo. Um, I'm kind of, I'll be honest with you, I'm excited. I'm a little speechless. I'm a little just because when we did the last stream of this, Dean, a year ago, I thought that was it. Like,
Yeah.
I thought that was it. There was going to be no more. And the reason why it's so funky right now, and we're doing this, and it's 5 a.m. on the East Coast, and it's like 9 o'clock over in Australia, is because we wanted to do it not only on the same day, but wanted to do it specifically this week because this week would have been the next episode last year. So it's been literally a year since we've actually done a Let's Talk MetaZoo. And like I was saying a few minutes ago, I never actually thought that we'd be doing another one of these.
Yeah. I felt like the mood, even for both of us in the last one, it was still so like caught up in processing that it was over.
Hmm.
That like MetaZoo was just gone like that. Mike put out a letter and it was gone. And we were just like, we both were so invested heavily within like the company and the IP and the brand, the people, the community. We just did not know like what was gonna happen. Like it was gone. That was it. It
Hmm.
was never coming back. It was gone. So it's pretty amazing to sit here 12 months later and know what's coming, and to be able to sit here with you again and discuss that. Like now, it's gonna be fun.
Well, the idea for tonight is we want to actually go through the timeline pretty much from our last broadcast until this broadcast. Kind of give a rough uh, timeline, if you will, of everything that went down that brought us back to this. Because as much I always thought that MetaZoo would be brought back. I always thought that MetaZoo would continue, but I'll be completely honest. I did not think it would happen within a year. I thought it was going to take a solid 2 to 3 years for like the bankruptcy process and all of that to happen, for somebody to pick up the IP and start moving forward with it. I thought it was going to be a solid 2 to 3 years.
I agree. Yeah.
I didn't think that we'd be here, like I said, a year later, basically being like, well, we got a new set coming out in 2 months. Um,
I did always
there,
say when that happened, I always said to people that asked, I was like, somebody will buy it. When and how, I don't know, but somebody will. Like MetaZoo did enough in that original lifespan under
mhm.
Mike to make an impact and prove, its IP in particular is worthy of a spot within our hobby and our industry. So it was always going to be picked up, but it was just, when we did that last one, it was like what the day of the letter.
Yeah.
Like we just did not know. It was like a couple of hours after, man. It was crazy.
I remember reading the ceasing operation letter at work because I was working at my dad's auto shop at the time, and I remember reading it and then contacting you. And I think, yeah, like you said, I think a few hours later that evening is when we actually did the farewell broadcast or whatever we named it.
Bro, I took
Um,
I took a mental health day off work that day. I
Really?
got and I just called my manager at the time. This is back when I was working in finance, and he said, "Hey, I'm taking today off, so I'm gonna reroute my emails and put a voicemail in, and I'll talk to you tomorrow." They're like, "Yeah, sweet, no worries." And that was when I reached out to you like straight after that. I stood like behind here with that blind up, just staring out to the window for like half an hour, thinking what's going to go on. Because the worst part is I'd taken legacy pre-orders, and I was sitting on about 7.5 to 10 grand worth of pre-orders for customers here. And thankfully, I still had about 70% of that money. There was only one like partner exclusive blister that I actually already paid MetaZoo, but for the rest of it, I still held everybody's money, which was good because it meant that same day I reached out to every single person and I refunded them straight away. I still ate a good chunk of it, but yeah, even in that moment, I was like, shit, what am I supposed to, how am I meant to handle this? But thankfully, I was in a position to be able to pay everybody back and get out of that. So no, I didn't burn anybody, even though MetaZoo burned the shit out of me. Well, Mike and Anthony burned the shit out of me. Let's not say MetaZoo because MetaZoo is back, baby, and it is in bloody good hands. If you haven't watched the Charlie Herlocker episode interview that I did, make sure you do. But yeah, Mike burned me bad.
I I get the feeling though of actually staring out the window because I did that for a while too, trying to figure out exactly what the path moving forward was. Because at
Yeah,
that time, literally a few days before Mike released that letter, like at this point, most people know that Mike hired me back in October, November of 2023, and kept pushing my start date. First time it was 2 weeks, then it was by a month, and then it was end of January. And I had literally talked to him a couple days before, making sure that everything was good and everything was golden because I was supposed to start literally that week. And I was reassured, yeah, everything's good, everything's fine. It's just road bumps, it's waves. It's like we just have to get through it and navigate it and blah blah blah. To then just be blindsided by that letter. Like that letter, it was devastating to be completely honest because everything that I had worked for pretty much had just disintegrated like completely. So to start off our whole timeline shenanigans, I guess. We'll start at the letter, and that came out, I believe, what January 29th of 2024 last year, and it basically was a letter that Mike released to the community at large without the majority of people actually knowing, basically saying that MetaZoo was ceasing operations. Um, it's honestly how a lot of the artists found out. It's a lot of how a lot of internal employees actually found out that MetaZoo was ceasing operations was that letter. There was no actual official communication until after that was published.
yeah.
Um, I feel like the next couple weeks, like the next 2 3 weeks, were just a flurry of rumors flying around, people trying to actually get information on what was going on, and ex-employees trying to actually get information what was going on. I mean, because I want to say that that letter came out, but then not everybody was really let go until like a week and a half after that letter had come out. Like they still had a couple of the artists retained, and like we don't know if they were trying to work something or there were rumors that there were deals flying around and that they were trying to sell the company, and that's one of the reasons why Mike released the letter when he did was because their last big offer in essence had fallen through. Um, so I would honestly describe the first 2 months after that letter as just chaos all the way around, internally with some of the employees not really knowing what's going on, externally with the community where we really had no way of knowing what was going on or anything like that. It wasn't really until I want to say what, like end of April or so, that Mike came back and did a stream with Bailey Brunello
I
on
mean, he
Whatnot. Well, they did the stream, and they were, and basically the reason why Mike
Mike
came
Mike
back.
popped in. Mike popped in and just tried to cover his own ass again on one of the
Well, there
things.
were a lot of things that were being sold on eBay, like well, supposedly sold on eBay, like the one of one moth and stuff like that. Um, the promos. What was it? The Continental promos, around the world beastie
Mm.
promos. Some of those were showing up on eBay and things. And Mike tried to come in and like, I'm gonna be the knight in shining armor. We're gonna put a stop to this. This stuff shouldn't be sold. This stuff should be in the inventory in the warehouse. And I don't know why the bankruptcy was never initiated back in February after this and that. And I'm gonna make it happen. I'm gonna start the process. And about a week or so went by, I think, after that, and then that's when I released the interview with Shaw. And as soon as that video dropped, Mike went live again, I believe, on Bailey's whatnot, and then proceeded to go into Bailey's Discord and post a bunch of incriminating evidence, in my
Yeah,
opinion. Text messages, bank statements, pay stubs, like stuff that he should not have been posting.
yeah,
Um, Vast majority of it, which was deleted before Bailey deleted the entire server. Um, but that was about the time when the two of them, did all of the art streams. I think there were a total of two, if I remember correctly. Um, and they just sold a bunch of original art on whatnot to try to fund a bankruptcy lawyer because Mike said he didn't have any money, and in order to get the process started for MetaZoo to go into bankruptcy, they had to sell the original art, which were
yeah,
assets
man.
for MetaZoo,
What
to
another
get that
story.
money. And that rubbed me the wrong way, my guy. And I'll let you talk about this here in a second. I'm sorry I'm hogging it, but like that really was one of the things that really rubbed me the wrong way because in essence they were selling MetaZoo assets in order to crowdfund a bankruptcy that should have been started in March, should
Yeah,
have been started in February. And once again, us, the community, we were funding that. And like I didn't buy a single piece of that art, and I only could watch parts of it because of how like to me a lot of watching that art, seeing like the SCP art, the some I think some of it was war art, to the Kickstarter, to just see that art being sold was heartbreaking because those are assets that a company that wanted to buy MetaZoo could have used
yeah.
that were out the door now. And yeah, like I said, I'll let you talk about that because I know that you have your own thoughts on the whole art being sold. But that was a
My
really
thoughts are pretty
hard
rough.
thing to watch.
They're pretty damning, pretty damning. I'm just going to shout out to Mel, Ash, and Damo in the chat as well. A couple of Aussies. It's a good time for the Aussies to be here. There's obviously not many Americanos. It's probably a little early over there. But you mean, look, even just what you said there, it's kind of like a damning series of events. Like someone starts selling product that shouldn't be sold, then Mike comes in like a white knight. Then they crowdfund to raise money for a bankruptcy lawyer. So they basically tell the community, oh, somebody's selling something they shouldn't. You guys need to help crowdfund a bankruptcy lawyer so we can stop it immediately. Pure bullshit, man.
They're literally doing what they're trying to call out.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Like I just, when that all sort of went down, that was the moment that I pulled the pin. Like I reached out to Mike the day he put the letter out and sort of
mhm.
offered condolences and said, "How can I help?" Blah blah blah. And then over the period of that next sort of month or two, I was like, "Shit, you got rug pulled myself like an absolute pencil." Like just these guys, they the more I sort of look back into it, and I've really tried not to, and I really haven't, and I haven't really spoken like about all my thoughts publicly
Mhm.
because it's to me it's wasted oxygen, especially now, like in this period of time where we have Charlie, the GQL team, everything that we sort of know and what's coming. Like, why waste hot gas on what was when realistically we've got so many amazing things coming up.
Hmm.
But yeah, like that period in particular, man, like my God, I was ropeable, like, and I kept myself off servers and like social media. Like I said, Bailey's server I'd left, the Oasis server I'd left. I was like, I just need to get out of here because it was just, I was very disappointed in the way those people at the top acted. But
Yeah.
you know,
Well, and it was one of those things too, where honestly, as a content creator covering that MetaZoo during that time, you had to be really careful too, because I'm just gonna come right out and say it. I don't care. Bailey was threatening other content creators with lawsuits if they were going to say anything that was negative about him or anything negative about Mike.
was he going to crowdfund for a lawyer to
I,
pay for that lawsuit?
well, at the end of the day, it honestly, like for me, it didn't really matter because like I don't have the type of money to go against anything like that. Whereas if like I'm a small creator, I have 3 kids and a wife. Like I don't have that type of money to defend myself, even though I wouldn't have done anything wrong. And so it was one of those where I feel a lot of people who would have spoken out didn't in fear of literally getting sued for whatever reason. Even if they didn't have a case, like even if Bailey wouldn't have had a case, the fact that it still could have gone to court could have actually still cost. I mean, that would have still cost a good amount of money. Like I said, I personally didn't have. And I saw, especially right around this time when all of the artwork was sold, I saw people like laying out trenches. Like, I mean, you had Shaw, you had Aoki, you had Mike, you had Bailey, you had all of these people who literally were drawing lines in the sand. And if you cross this line, we're coming after you. And like a good example of kind of why I bring Aoki up into it is that when Mike first originally went into Bailey's Discord and started posting things, one of the first things he posted in that Discord was a text message thread that had Aoki's day-to-day manager in it. And he's just like, "Oh, Aoki has nothing to do with this." I'm like, "Then why are you showing us text messages that have literally his day-to-day manager in it?" So it got very, very volatile around May when they sold all the artwork. They went to somewhere in Jersey and got a lawyer to represent them for the bankruptcy that has ties to Bailey again. I'll be honest, I don't remember if they used that same lawyer or not either. Um, but then the bankruptcy process actually started. They actually initially started the bankruptcy process, and about that same time is when Shaw sent basically a letter to them saying, "Hey, you have about a month and a half before I sell your stuff." And they were scrambling, trying to figure out exactly what they were going to do, how they were going to put everything together, try to sell it. Um,
Yeah, it got
there
pretty
was
it
a
got pretty wild there for a second.
it was really hard to keep up with for a minute.
uh,
Like there was a lot of
yeah,
stuff happening quick. Like at one point, there was a Discord notification that popped up in the MetaZoo Discord, and everybody was like, "Oh, what's that? What's that?" And what it was it was Mike going into the Discord that no one had access to anymore, that no one could see anything, and posting a notification, basically being like, "Does anybody want to buy MetaZoo?" Because literally a couple days later, he posted it actually on Instagram, and then anybody that had ever bought anything from the marketplace, the MetaZoo marketplace, what their website, there was a mass email that was sent out about, "Hey, does anybody want to buy MetaZoo?" Um, and that was the first time that I really was like, okay, well maybe somebody's actually going to like pick this up because there was a lot of thought process of, are they going to go full bankruptcy and liquidate everything, or are they going to try to do bankruptcy and sell it? And from the way that it seemed, and I don't know, tell me what your thoughts on this were. From the way that it seemed, early, late May, early June, it felt like they were literally trying to bankrupt it to liquidate everything.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like they were. I mean, especially after that art sale, it didn't feel like they were trying to continue. They were trying to sell this. It felt like they were literally trying to liquidate as much as they could in order to do whatever with the bankruptcy. I don't know. What do you, how would you feel? Or what do you feel about that?
It no, it literally felt like they wanted to save their own ass. What do we need to do to be able to make sure that we don't get hit with all the debt lawsuits from all the debtors that they owed money to? And that was their only prerogative, was getting that shell off their back, for sure. One way or another, didn't matter how they were going to do it. That's what they were going to do. They're just lucky. Mike is honestly lucky that he actually, in a moment of genius, created a really, really amazing brand and IP. Just a shame that didn't have the nuance or the balls to allow somebody who actually knows how to run a business run it, because it would have been great the way that it was. There was things that needed work, but like as what it was, like you got to say we had moments of greatness, and then there was a lot that let it down. But I think a lot of the stuff that let it down was business related.
And this is something we can talk about at a later point when we're not going over the full timeline. But I do want to just say this right now while it's fresh. I now, and knowing everything that we know now, knowing everything that we've learned this past year about how Old Zoo operated, how Mike operated, the rest of his team, things like that, I don't feel as confident anymore that Retro Zoo would still be around and or flourish. There always would have been a Kuromi moment. It was just when, not if. Because, and I say Kuromi moment because, in my opinion, Kuromi is what finally put the last nail in the coffin for Retro Zoo because of the deal that they actually had with Sanrio and everything like that. But I don't know if they would have been able to sustain themselves indefinitely moving forward. Basically, just because of the practices that they had, what they had done in the past, what they weren't telling us, what they were telling us that wasn't true, and how long they had been doing that.
Again, but that's what I'm saying. That comes down to
Like,
who Mike decided to make his or build his team around to run that
well,
business.
it's what I'm saying though, is that even if they would have had, even if he would have gotten rid of some people and replaced them, I'm talking specifically like Andy, for example, I still don't think that would have indefinitely kept the
No,
company
Mike
going.
needed to
I
replace
think
himself
they were
in order for
still
it.
on their way down, and it's just something that we didn't actually see until all of the pieces were in front of us.
Mike had to replace himself at the top
Yeah,
at the start in
yeah,
order for it to have any chance. But that's what I'm saying. Like when I'm saying business, I'm not talking about you know 3, 4 rungs down the pecking order. I'm saying, Mike, you created something great. You had no idea how to run it, so let somebody else run it, and it might have been a different story.
yeah, right. I actually have somebody on Twitch watching. What's up, Emily? How you doing? Welcome, welcome. I always throw it on Twitch just in case anybody wants to watch, and I don't usually ever have anybody, so I was kind of excited. I saw somebody comment. Um, but yeah, that's something else that we can talk about like later, like all of the failures that we saw. Um,
It's a
but
long list.
it's a long list. There's just been so much information and things that have come out over this last year. It's crazy, and like we're 24 minutes into this, and we're still only caught up to like what May,
Yeah,
June.
yeah.
Okay, so art sale happens. They finally get a bankruptcy lawyer. They initiate the process of bankruptcy. Mike then mass mails everybody in the community and outside the community about who wants to actually buy this thing. And it's pretty quiet, I feel, for a couple weeks. And then the auction of all of the stuff that's still at Golden is postponed. So people actually think that either a sale is going to happen or something's in the works.
That
We
auction was
don't.
something that Shaw threw together in haste as well, though, right? Remember that? Like, I don't know whether if there was legitimately an auction that was going to happen, or it was like an empty threat of, hey, you've got till this date, I'm going to auction off all this stuff.
Well, it was an official document that Shaw actually showed. Like he put an official
Was it
lien
official?
on
How
it.
many
It
official
was
documents have we
it was
seen?
an actual no, it was an actual real lien that he put on the product that was actually in the warehouse. But the weird thing was that, and like this is why I feel like you can't really trust anybody from the old administration. 90%, 95% of what Shaw actually told me and explained to me that I used in my video, like, well, all of it, he basically had receipts. He had screenshots. He had all sorts of stuff that he showed me to back up with what he was claiming, like the five things he was claiming from that video. The one that never really actually sat fully with me though was them moving product from California to supposedly North Carolina. That's where the warehouse change was supposed to be. I don't know if the product that was moved was Shaw's personal or if it was part of what was MetaZoo proper's inventory. And the only reason I bring that up is um, Everend. Everend is one of the guys that basically they're on eBay. They've been selling a bunch of product. They've been selling a bunch of product for months now. And back in December, they actually had a really good sale on UFO booster boxes. I think it was like six booster boxes for like $30. And I was like, I love me some UFO. Sure, I got it for $32 shipped. But the shipping label that was printed on it was North Carolina. So like that I feel is old Shaw inventory that was in North Carolina, and that's what I got. Like it was really odd. I was not expecting the shipping label to actually be labeled North Carolina. I thought it was going to be coming from Santa Clara in California. Um, but I bring that up to where like nobody at this point I'm kind of jumping the gun, but this is about the time July is about the time where we really start realizing that we have no idea about inventory counts. We have the list that was submitted that they gave to the bankruptcy lawyer of like this is what we have inside the warehouse. But even that I don't feel like that list is accurate. And even if it is semi accurate, it's not inventory. Like we don't know like 2000 promos. 2000 promos of what? Like you have X amount of skateboards. Okay, cool. What skateboards? So about what was it July, August or so, things kind of like we didn't really get any new information whatsoever. But I think that was about the time where it was basically said that MetaZoo had been sold. I think, and we had no idea who sold it. That was when the rumors started flying that it was like Bandai bought it and these guys over here bought it and it was this group of people over here they bought it. Somebody bought it literally so they could bury it in the ground. And it wasn't until October, I believe, when it was actually announced, "Hey, we bought it." And I'll be honest, I don't even fully remember if it was announced by GQL or M2 that they had bought it. I think it was actually somebody in the community was sleuthing, and that's how they actually found who initially bought it. I don't really remember, to be honest with you. Do you
I think
remember?
there was. I think Nick found a document. Nick found a document somewhere,
Okay.
like legally somewhere on, like, because he's following the court case and all that stuff pretty
It was
closely,
the
and
document that
he found
Charlie signed to
yeah,
finalize the actual sale.
yeah, Nick found it and he put it up, and that was like, okay, now we know who it is. And then everybody's jumping on LinkedIn and Facebook or whatever, trying to find out who these people are. And
Because originally they
you
thought
know,
it was
big
actually Rich that owned it,
yeah,
the
big shout
president of
out
GQL.
to Nick's work in that time though. Like he definitely sort of kept our very small, sort of community like alive, kept everybody well informed. I watched all his videos during that period of time because I wanted to know what was going on, but at the same time by keeping myself out of the limelight or the spotlight, I guess, as well.
There was a handful of people actually, I think, in the Oasis Discord that literally were showing every single court document that was generated. Nick was doing a good job of actually keeping basically a running timeline going, especially once the bankruptcy was actually initiated. From that point forward, pretty much up until about November, Nick did a really good job of actually keeping everybody up to date on exactly what was going on with the court case, where it had moved. There's a lot of speculation, but he did actually give us a lot of good information in that too. Um, and I don't think it was actually until November when Meta 2 actually turned back on the Discord. And then that's when it
That
honestly,
was
in
pretty
my opinion,
crazy.
became real.
That was interesting because I'm obviously a moderator for the Discord.
Hmm.
So
Oh yeah,
um,
disclaimer by the way, this guy over here, he's a moderator in the MetaZoo Discord. Just throwing it out there.
so it was a cool experience to be in there before they turned it back on and to watch everybody get the notification and sort of bang come back into the chat and see so many people that we've shared the hobby with over those years, like ecstatic to sort of see it back up and running. And like, it was obviously that Discord's always had its issues,
Hmm.
like a lot of Discord servers do with people coming in and out. But for the most part, that launch of it again under Meta 2 and GQL has been flawless, and it was an exciting day. It was a really really cool day. It was probably the most modding I've ever done. It's hard for me to do it at any other time. I always check it at night time, but not a lot's going on because you guys are mostly asleep or just waking up. It's pretty chill. It makes my job
Hmm.
relatively easy. But that day, me and the other mods in particular were just like watching everything like an absolute hawk. Like, oh, what's he saying? What's he saying? What's he saying?
The first 2 days were probably some of the most special days of 2024, in my opinion. Because, like you said,
Yeah.
there were so many people that we hadn't talked to for months that came back. People who hadn't been in the Discord for a year or two who came back just to see what was going on. Um, it was like a big reunion. Like it was there was something really special about those first couple days in the Discord. I'm still of the opinion where I don't know if I would have actually opened that up though again the way they did. I don't. I think one of the things that actually hurt Old Zoo the most was the public Discord. Um, just because it gives the ability to a few individuals to literally just keep the entire mood negative. And I don't know. I have like we talked about it before. We actually talked about it last year when Retro Zoo actually shut down the Discord to begin with. I honestly thought that was a good idea. It's been cool though to actually have that resource to talk to people again because there were a couple fan discords really where like the entire community just shattered into like 4 or 5 different discords. So I will say it's been really, really awesome to have everybody come back together in one. Um, but discords are just they're so such a roll of the dice in my opinion.
I don't know. I don't know if they'll utilize that Discord in the same manner that it was utilized by
Oh, I
Mike.
don't think they will based off of just what they've done in the last couple
But
months.
what I will
Yeah.
say is I think they had to do something with it because of the amount of members and people that not necessarily, and there was people that came back in that didn't know everything that had already happened in terms
Hmm.
of it being bought and it coming back and all that sort of stuff. So you had to pull the trigger on it at some point, and I think there was literally, we talked about it, there was only one way to do it. It was the way it was done. It's to rip the band-aid off.
On top of that, too, if people haven't noticed, they Meta 2 doesn't have access to all of the old socials
That's true.
that old Meta that RetroZoo had. And some of that is due to, well, most of it, honestly, I think, is due to to Mike and company, not either giving up the information or having it tied to certain email accounts or things like that. Like I know, for example, like the Instagram account, they tried to get access to the old Instagram account. And the only reason I know this is because of the way that it actually works. Like when you try to initiate a claim on a business account, or basically however their old MetaZoo account was set up, Instagram honestly messages randomly to people that follow the account asking, "Hey, is this legit?" And one of those two people that actually got hit messaged me like, "Yo, is this like real? Like, what's going on with this?" Um, and the two like it doesn't give you any option of being able to contact them or say anything to them or anything like that. So it's literally like a random person that follows you gets a message, "Hey, somebody's trying to take control of this account. Is this actually something that they should be able to do?" Um, and the first person I think that actually got it was the one that I talked to, and they were cool. But then the second one immediately was like, "Oh no, somebody's trying to fish that account or something." And so that's why like they couldn't get access to the old
How
Instagram
does
account, for example.
how does a Instagram, part of Meta, a multi-billion-dollar business, think that that is a good model to realize if somebody is or isn't or doesn't have the rights to an account? What kind
I
of
have no
pencil
idea.
came up with that process? That is the
Well,
dumbest
technically,
thing I've ever heard.
I think RetroZoo also had control of the MetaZoo Caster Society Facebook page because I know that D used to actually mod that on Facebook.
I don't think so. I think
Um,
Chris still had that.
well, no, that was never actually part of Caster Society. That was actually part of MetaZoo proper. That
Oh, I
the
know which one you're
that
talking
that
about. Yeah,
Facebook
no,
page,
no, no.
yeah, yeah, not the Caster
Yeah,
Society one.
no.
This is the one with the red banner. That one's always been part
Yeah,
of actual MetaZoo. But
yeah,
all of their socials, pretty much for the most part, they had to redo. Like somebody just said, start fresh because
yeah,
they couldn't get access to them for whatever reason that they just like there was just no way. Um, I do know, coincidentally enough, because if you go to the YouTube page, you can actually see this. It's on there. I guess part of, and I don't know how any of this works detail wise, but part of the acquisition when they bought MetaZoo, Meta2 also acquired Caster Society, because their YouTube channel, actually the one that they're using right now, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, it actually still says like powered by Caster Society or in part of Caster Society. Um, and so they were able to use some of those socials and reappropriate them, I guess, for MetaZoo proper. But it makes sense as much as I still think Discord is a double edged sword. It makes sense for them to actually use the original Discord because that I think was the only original social media account that they actually got control of.
yeah.
Everything else they
Well,
had to start
it's
fresh.
one of the easier.
Everything else they had to start fresh. Um, and then basically over the last couple of months, we have gotten artwork teases, we've gotten aura teases, we've gotten information about release and other things like that through the Discord. I do think you are correct, though, that they're not going to utilize the Discord the same way that Mike and RetroZoo did, um, especially the way that Andy used to operate in the old Discord, where he would go in, post something, and then delete it 30 seconds later. Like we don't,
Worse.
we're not playing those games anymore. We've grown up in essence, if you will. But that pretty much brings us to today. Throughout the entirety of the timeline, I don't want to really go that much into the art right now or anything like that because that's all stuff we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about like the ship date, theorize a little bit about the gameplay changes, and that update that Charlie gave us about 2 weeks ago about sets 1 through 4 alpha product, and kind of want to, like I said, go over some of the art too as well. But that's kind of like a rough timeline of the bankruptcy, or the I guess I should say the ceasing operations letter from January 29th of 2024 to now. A lot more than what we just said, though. A lot more happened. than what we just went through.
Yeah, you kind of just like skip all the
Like,
big bit. It's
this
like,
was
wait a
a
minute.
very condensed version of all of that, hitting some of the key points, calling out some of the key players. Um, but yeah, it's been a wild and tiring year. I will say that. I will say that. Um, but as always, things look amazingly bright, in my opinion. I think we are in a position to actually not only just see the resurgence of Zoo, but also to see what it actually was supposed to be, like with drive and intention and engagement and community. Like there's so much that we have to look forward to over the next 2 months.
Yeah.
That I mean, I like basically in that statement that Charlie left in the Discord, there's something that's really been sticking with me. And it's that this is the last time we won't have a set to enjoy while we're waiting for something else.
Yeah.
This is the last time that we won't have anything in anticipation of a new product, of anticipation of a new set. Like this is the first and last time we will ever be in this position. So it's a very unique position, honestly, to be in because everybody wants everything now. We want to know everything about everything right this second. The card list, how the game works, how the art's going to work, how everything, all of it. And we're as a community not used to having to be patient and wait. We're very used to having to wait, I should say,
Yeah.
especially on product that's promised that we never get. Um, but we're not used to how a real company would operate, I should say. And we, like I was saying before,
Well,
Andy
we are.
would
We are.
jump into Discord
We're
and
used
drop
to.
something for 5 seconds and then delete it. Or Mike would accidentally disclose something or spoil something or whatever. And we've never been in a position where we've really had to like wait for information while not really getting much information at all.
Mm.
So it's a very weird position.
Yeah.
We will never have to have 48 promos between core sets again. Oh my God, preach, Maddie, preach. It's
Yeah.
better to wait
I
and
saw
have
that
them
and I
get it.
giggled straight away.
Exactly what Ashley right here says, though. It is better to wait and have them get it right. That is one of the things that I have noticed personally with Charlie is that he does not give out any sort of information. He does not give out any sort of promises that he doesn't feel they can actually fulfill. He's been very tight-lipped on information with deadlines, with this, with info and everything. And it's exactly because of what Ashley just said. They want to make sure because he even reiterated that actually in that statement that it's better to actually make sure things are concrete instead of just teasing something. Exhibit A would be Arby's. Look how much controversy that one statement Mike made a year and a
Yeah.
half ago about an Arby's collaboration. Look how much it created, and nothing ever came out of
Man. I don't even know what Arby's is. Like, far
it.
out,
It's
dude.
a fast food chain here in the United States that deals with
Why didn't they pick
these
a good one?
sandwiches.
Why didn't they pick a good one
Oh
like
no,
In and Out
Arby's
Burger
is
or Way Cooler?
delicious. No, no, Arby's is delicious. If you ever come to this, or next time you come to the states, we will find an Arby's, and I will get you an Arby's roast beef sandwich with cheddar cheese. Mwah, it is amazing.
I was
But
honestly thinking about going to Dallas for CollectorCon when Charlie said they were going to be there, and I was like, I got to go to Japan in like a month, and then I need to go up north, up to Queensland for like 2 weeks later in the year. I was like, I don't think I can squeeze that one in without pissing off my wife. So I was like, I think I'll just have to. I'm not going to get over there this year like I wanted to, but yeah, I will, and I'll have to try Arby's. But yeah, you're right.
that's
Like
it.
it's
No, I
crazy.
promise you, Arby's is delicious. It is one of my favorite fast food chains out here in the United States. Like it is delicious. Like oh no, Arby's is amazing.
Vested TCGs with me. They said Arby's is trash.
Can't say that. Can't say it until you try it. You got to try it. I'm just saying. But like again, using that as an example, though, look that how much controversy that one line. It is
Yeah.
very American. I will say that,
They
Vesper.
meant a bathing ape.
Um.
Wasn't there meant to be a bathing ape collab?
Uh. No, that was. Are you talking about like the NFTs?
Nah, Bape. It's like a clothing brand. They teased that at one point as well. There was like I'd say there was like almost 10 collabs that they teased that never ever happened.
There were too many. There were too many to keep track of. Too many to actually keep up with. Like completely, completely honest.
Some of it was cool, but that was one of the things that basically brought them down. They obviously had a really good financial deal when they ran these collaborations with other companies, because otherwise they wouldn't have done the amount that they did. Seriously, they must have
See,
made so much money.
I don't know if they did though, because at the end of the day, they were actually paying these other companies to do collaborations with them, not the other way around. These companies weren't paying MetaZoo to collaborate with them. MetaZoo was paying them to collaborate with them. So, like, again, that kind of goes back to that whole idea of
Do you know
what
that
is
for
real and
fact?
what's not real. Well, I know, like, using Sanrio as an example,
Sanrio is a
like,
different
they,
thing.
fair, but I'm just like,
Revive
I
is a
don't,
different beast.
I mean, look at, well, yeah, like Revive, I would say actually maybe Bear Walker, like a lot of these,
Even that jewelry
I,
company, like, there
What's Your
was heaps of the,
Passion?
yeah,
What's Your
smaller
Passion? That's
ones
another
where
one too.
I'm
I know
sure
that,
Mike lent into the hype train, because there was a big hype train,
well,
for MetaZoo at one point.
I
I'm
know that
sure people
MetaZoo
have heard of it.
was funding into P2, like Mike and company were funding into P2 at
Yeah,
one point
yeah, they do.
because the president of into P2 was an old MetaZoo employee.
Yeah,
Like that's like they had so much money pouring out that they just needed to not worry about collaborations. Because like the collaborations, in my opinion, is what killed them. It is what put the final nail in the coffin.
yeah.
Um, and so I was stoked when basically it seems like Meta 2 is like we might do collaborations, but it's going to be something that actually makes sense and it's going to be something that actually works for the brand itself. It's not.
And to be
That's the
fair,
one thing. A lot of I felt it what a lot of the collaborations that old admin didn't feel like MetaZoo either. Like it just I don't know. Like the we never actually saw the final product, but wasn't there like a Ron Howard collaboration? Like I just there's so what is it? Should have just focused on core sets. That's what they needed to do actually, Matt, is they needed to actually focus more on the core sets and they needed to focus actually on the story and the
oh,
IP.
Manny, how funny is that? Remember when they said they were going to have like the arcade machines and vending machines? You could only use like the MetaZoo coins from promos and what were they called? Spellbooks.
Yep,
And Manny's like
yep.
sitting on a mountain of them waiting for the
And yeah,
arcade.
oh yeah. The coins were only supposed to be you were able to use the coins actually in the arcade game that was in development for 2 years that never showed up. You're supposed to use the coins actually for the vending machines at like New York Comic Con in order to actually get like the stickers like these. Um there's just so much that was stated and they were all talk way too early. Ex- Again, Ashley, that's correct. There were so many promises and so many times things were underdelivered or undelivered completely
Yeah.
that I just it's just I don't know. Looking back again, I believed everything that Mike was saying because I was
Cedo.
talking to him directly. Hey, Cito, what's up, my
Cedo.
dude? How you doing?
Let's
Um,
go.
I believed everything that Mike was saying though because he was telling it to me directly. Granted,
I believed everything
it
Mike.
was through
I believed
Discord.
everything Mike told me. I got absolutely full goosed. I got full goosed. You know, it was.
Yeah,
I think we
and
all did. We all got played. Let's be honest. There's
like
no
it
one
just
there's
it.
no one that didn't.
But now that we have the timeline actually out of the way, 50 minutes into this, oh my god, and that's just the Cliff Notes actual version of it. Um, he got every single partner, CNO good, every single partner, whether they were U.S. based or they were internationally based, he got every single one of them. And some of you guys lost tens of thousands of dollars because of what he did, and it's just God, it's just so heartbreaking that everything fell apart the way that it actually did. But saying that, moving forward, 1 year later,
Fuck off, Mike. You're done.
we have so much. You gotta excuse him; he's Australian, okay? Um, we have so
Oops.
much good stuff to talk about, though, about Meta
So
2,
much.
GQL, Charlie, the new zoo. There's so much information that we actually have, though, that I wanted to get all of that out of the way and talk about the entire timeline and everything that brought us up to this point right here, 25, because we're going to we're going to look back on this broadcast a year from now, and we're going to be in a completely different world, just like we're in a completely different world right now than we were a year ago from 2024. I We had your hand raised. Yes, you want to say something?
I just actually just I don't think there's been enough credit given to the company name Meta 2. I think it's brilliant. When I saw that, I was like, man, that's actually genius. That's so
I
funny.
know. I
That's
laughed so
I
hard
thought it
when
was
I
brilliant.
saw it. I was like, ah, it's
Yeah,
brilliant. No, and I think that's the official, actual, real name of the company too.
it
Like, I
is.
don't think it's just something they're calling themselves. I think they are literally Meta 2.
Yeah, it is.
It's so amazing.
It's so good.
It's
It's so good.
so the
Let's
first thing
move
I
into
have
the
actually,
future for sure. Let's move into what's coming up and what we
yeah,
know
the
so
first thing
far
I
because
have
that's
on my
the
list that I
exciting
want
part.
to talk about is an actual ship date, because we knew back last year when the Discord first opened up that the first product, which, just to recap that briefly, Meta 2 is no longer using any, or actually, I can't say using, they're no longer supporting and printing any of the old retro zoo cards. So, stuff like this, like, we won't actually have retro MetaZoo cards moving forward. Meta 2 is revamping the game, which almost everybody actually said needed to be simplified, from judges to players to whoever. They are simplifying the game, they're streamlining it, they're combining some of the aspects. It looks like at least like the only one we really can kind of like guess on would be auras, because it looks like they kind of condensed some of the auras based off of just the teaser that they gave us. But new zoo, or the new meta zoo, is going to be different than retro zoo. We know that they've been honest about that from the beginning, from the Nick Strength and Pokemon broadcast that Charlie did to the interview that he actually did with you in the Hobby Podcast, Dean. They've been very, very clear that they are fixing it. They are changing it for the better. Um, there's tons of stuff that we can get into here in just a little bit about gameplay wise, gameplay theory wise, of what they're going to change and if it's a good idea, things like that. But the first thing I wanted to start this entire conversation out with, though, was we actually have a street date for this new product. This new product is going to be a base set for MetaZoo moving forward. So this is going to be the first set of the brand new game, the complete base
Guess
of
what?
everything
It's on
moving forward.
Kickstarter now.
Well, the cool thing actually about, and I know, because I know the first people here before, like when they hear new product, when they hear new
Yeah,
game,
Mm.
First thing they say is, "Oh my God, what about the old cards?" Well, the old cards, we still have all of them. We still have everything from all of those sets. We actually even have the prototype cards, most of them for Legacy, for SCP, for War. We actually have a good number of the prototype cards that were actually leaked as well too. So Retro Zoo isn't going anywhere. Retro Zoo is still able to be played. There are still thousands of combinations that people haven't actually discovered and thought of. Like I even theorized that Meta 2 at some point could even have like a Retro Zoo tournament at a Collecticon or something. Like Retro Zoo, it is not going anywhere, and that's the one big thing that I actually want to stress because everybody's like, "Oh, these cards are worthless. I might as well just throw them away," and I'm like, "No," because at the end of the day, these are still the precursor to what Meta 2 is. So, in my opinion, honestly, when Meta 2 actually knocks it out of the park and people really like it, we're talking like 2 3 years down the line once we have a couple actual sets in our under our pocket for Meta 2, I still feel that some of these cards, the majority of these cards, especially from Kickstarter to Nightfall, are still going to be worth something. Because again, these are the first cards from MetaZoo. Like these are the first precursors. And I keep thinking of when Pokemon Company split from Wizards of the Coast. And as they actually got further and further and further away from the Wizards of the Coast Pokemon cards, they stopped being in the format. They stopped being able to be played. The new stuff was way too more powerful, things of that. So I'm kind of almost looking at Retro Zoo like that, where this is an introduction of a new format, which, in my opinion, we were going to have to do anyways once we reached Yokai. There was no way with Retro Zoo that it was going to be able to move forward under one format and include Yokai. Yokai was going to have to be a completely different standard format that did not include any of the Cryptid Nation cards. Like there was just no way they're going to be able to continue that. And so that's kind of how I'm viewing Retro Zoo. Is it's its own complete different format. Not that it's being completely eliminated. I don't like the idea that it's being eliminated because they're still using aspects of the old game in the new game. I feel.
I'm not going to speculate on old MetaZoo, purely just because if MetaZoo fans want the new MetaZoo to succeed, you should be spending your money on new MetaZoo and not old MetaZoo. Sure, one day there will be a place for the MetaZoo Take One. Like you said, your WotC versus Nintendo analogy is actually a fair way to look at it. I don't see the similarities lining up completely between what's transpired with MetaZoo and what transpired with Pokemon in the same time. But I do think, at some point, yes, there will always be people that love the old stuff. There'll be people that come into the new game, learn about the old stuff, and want to grab some. But the reality is, like all the talk with everything that's going on now, is MetaZoo's success lies in what's to come and not what has been.
That's true. That's true. Its success is in what's actually coming forward and not what was behind us. That's a really good way of putting it. So we have a ship date of this new base set. We kind of give everybody an understanding of exactly. I just kind of had to give some backstory on why they're, I feel, replacing
Yeah.
Retro Zoo. But the ship date is March 28th, or that is the street date, I should actually say. So that is a hard date that we've actually been given. And again, going back to what we were talking about earlier, Charlie, I feel, doesn't give us information unless it is concrete, unless it is one of those where like it is happening right now, this right here. So
I
I'm
agree.
holding I'm holding on to that March 28th date as a hard date. And as far as I can tell, everything that they have or everything that they're doing right now still lines up with that March 28th date. Um, because people have to realize that they're they're printing everything here in the United States. So before and with the majority of like indie TCGs and things like that, the cards are printed in like China per se. Okay, and then it takes 2 months roughly for them to get over here via boat, or it even takes like a week or two for them to get over here via plane. I feel with all the different stops and stuff like that, and they're sidetracking all of that by printing here in the United States. Um, so that's huge in
I
my
mean,
opinion.
it still has a long way to go to get down here, though. But
No, that's fair.
if hang on, if it's done in the correct way, which I highly believe it will be, unlike previous examples, like other TCGs, if the street date is the 28th, then it will be here with distributors or stores to be able to hit the shelves on the 28th. So I'm
And
assuming that, if it's releasing in the US on the 28th, it'll release here on the 28th.
well, I don't know the specifics on this, but I imagine that with Retro Zoo, it was shipped from China to the United States, and then it was shipped from the United States to you.
On a boat the first time.
So,
Okay, so Rob, check this for a sec. Nightfall was released in October, right? And Halloween.
mhm.
That was when that came out. The first Nightfall boxes that were actually for sale through distribution in Australia were in the end of February. That's how long it took to get here.
Well, they've actually already introduced an Australian distributor, so
They
I
have.
feel.
It is the number one distributor in Australia. They're the only Pokemon distribution
Oh wow.
business in Australia. I know in the US you have a number of different distribution
Hmm.
companies. We have a number of them here, but only one has the right to distribute Pokemon, and that is the biggest one, Banter Toys and Collectibles, and they're the ones that are distributing MetaZoo, which is amazing.
I don't think you're going to have to wait 4 months for this. I
I don't
wouldn't
even
be
want to wait a
surprised.
day. I want it on the
I well,
28th.
they still. I mean, and there's enough time, honestly, still for because like this was 2 weeks ago or so when we actually got word from Charlie that they were starting to print this base
Yeah.
set. Okay, and we have no idea what the print runs on this are going to be. I'm assuming that it's probably going to be on the lower end, but still, even saying that on the lower end, that could mean anywhere from like what 10,000 to 25,000 booster boxes. Just using booster boxes as an example, like which is a drop in the bucket in compared to like the other major big three, but still 25,000 booster boxes if that ends up being the number, that's still a big amount for a smaller community like we actually have, especially since how our community has rescinded. It has gotten smaller since the bankruptcy. But even with some people would argue, well, 25,000 actually sounds like a lot. How would they be able to do that? That's not that much when it comes to like TCGs in essence. They could still print everything in a matter of a week or two, still get everything packaged in another week or two, and they would still have a month before actual street date.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go out on a limb and actually say I feel like there's still a possibility that Australia, specifically since like we don't know anything about any other distributors for any other regions of the world, like Europe, Asia, things like that. We know specifically the Australian one because I know they announced that in the Discord. We could potentially see a simultaneous release, in my opinion, in North America and Australia at the same time on the 28th.
I hope
I
so.
don't know. I don't know. I don't because I don't know the
I
logistics of
won't
it.
hold it against Charlie if that is the case, but I hope that that's the case. Obviously, the majority of the market is the US market.
Hmm. For
But
now, for now.
that said, it was a big deal when they linked up with Banter, and Charlie is well aware of the community that is down here. So I have faith. I have faith that we'll get to see it. We'll get to see
The
it hopefully same day.
I know that they have a really big focus on the global market because the reason why everything is so North America dependent is because of the way that the old Retro Zoo was set up, because it took place in North America. It was made in North America. There, blah 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 blah. So I know that there is more of a global outlook now. So I think distribution wise, this base set versus, well, hell, set two even is going to be completely different. It could be completely different. I think that whatever they don't have in place internationally by base set release, they'll have in place by set two.
Yeah.
So, somebody just asked. This is actually is a kind of a decent segue into some of the gameplay theories. Somebody was why do you think we haven't seen the front and the back of cards yet? The reason on Discord was because many things still may be revised, but if the cards are at the printer, it doesn't make sense. Um, it makes sense to me that they don't want to show anything right now because they only have one shot at this. They only have one shot at actually introducing the gameplay, the mechanics, how everything about how New Zoo operates once. On top of that, too, we don't know really anything when it comes to new gameplay. So we don't know what type of mechanics they're putting in there. We don't know what type of quirks there are with the game. Um, I know from the interview that Charlie's done with Nick and then with you and different things he said that this is a format, I guess, that GameCube has been like working on, but we don't know the specifics of it. We don't know if it's something that's completely new to TCGs. We don't know if they're waiting on some sort of a copyright. We don't know anything. Like that's the one big thing out of the entire conversation today. I want people to take away and walk away with is that them not giving us information isn't the same as when Mike and Andy wouldn't give us information. When Mike and Andy wouldn't give us information, it was because they did not know. They had no idea what what was happening, either in my opinion, what was happening, or how to answer that question. There are certain things, secrets, sure, like some of the story, blah blah blah, whatever. But in my opinion, 95% of the time, old admin did not know how to answer that question with because they had no information or they knew that their answer would literally infuriate the community. So when Charlie and Meta2 GQL, they don't give us answers and they're quiet, it's not because of that. There is reasoning behind, I feel, them being quiet and not saying anything. And we might not know what that is. We might not know the reasonings behind it. And this I know this is going to be very controversial for me to say, but honestly, at the end of the day, they don't have to tell us this information.
No,
Retro
Magic the
Zoo was
Gathering don't do
different.
that. Pokemon
Well,
don't do
Retro
that.
Zoo was different, in my opinion, versus New MetaZoo, because Retro Zoo was funded off of our backs. We're the ones that paid everything. We're the ones that pre-ordered everything. We're literally the ones that funded that company. Now, when it comes to Meta 2 and it comes to what GQL is actually helping Meta 2 accomplish, we have not put any money into that company. There
Correct.
are no pre-orders for that company. There are no direct to consumer from that company. It is again. This kind of goes. It's going to be a running theme. We talked about this at the beginning.
It's
This
a
is the
great take.
first time the MetaZoo company or MetaZoo community has had to have a relationship with a real business. Not a bunch of friends making a game, not a guy who came up with something in his mom's basement and printed the cards himself and it blew up. A real company who have interest for themselves, have an interest for the future. They care. They actually want to actually. There's a thin line that they have to actually basically balance on between community, gameplay, and running a business.
You could see that
And
from the aura
we're
spoiler as well.
we're not used to that as a community. MetaZoo is not used to that whatsoever. Again, we're used to Andy coming in the Discord, dropping something for 30 seconds, and then deleting it. We're not used to a targeted marketing campaign. We're not used to an idea of, oh, this day each week we're going to post some sort of art reveal. Like it's a completely different vibe, and I understand why it makes some people like, oh, I don't know what's going on. It's because you're not supposed to know what's going on right now. like it, uh, I don't know. Does that make sense? Like, is that?
I think it's great.
I,
I think it's might be one of your best takes today. To be fair, really, honestly, I mean that. Like there was a very the sooner people realized that it was the community that basically propped up the original MetaZoo business. Like they had no money without us. If we didn't
mhm,
pre-order all their shit, then they couldn't fund the next one or the next one or the next one. That's why it went under. And then you've got, like you said, Meta2 and GQL are already, what 2 million plus, like into this business about creating an actual game with longevity. The Aura spoiler told us that. Just the fact that they released 4 and then said and there's another one in set 2 and another one in set 3. They're already thinking beyond, like and that's one of our next points is set 3 and 4 being worked on. I think Andy and Mike got an idea. They put a spoiler in the Discord, see what the response was going to be. Then they'd reach out to those people and probably try and get the deal done. That was probably how a lot of those
mhm.
went down, which is why
Well,
there's collaborations that didn't happen.
I can tell you for a fact that the vast majority of MetaZoo hours were literally for Mike to get ideas.
Yeah.
They were literally like half of the time, like I've lost count. I've lost count the amount of times that I was told. The first time I heard about that was through a MetaZoo hour, and I'm talking employees of the company who didn't know what was going on because somebody would say something in a MetaZoo hour, and Mike would act like, "Oh, we're already planning on that." Well, this is the first that that person had ever heard of it or heard of it. Like
Yeah.
we're not that type of company anymore. like we're not over promising and under delivering anymore. Like that is literally one of those where they're giving us information when it is actually appropriate, when they know that this information is accurate. They're not trying to drag us along. They're not trying to actually be like, oh, well, this would be really cool. Look at Arby's. Like they're not playing those games anymore. And we're
And
not
they
used to
don't
that.
have.
We don't know how to react to not getting that type of interaction.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They don't have to as well, like you said. They're the ones that have put the money into buying this IP. They're the ones that are putting the money into creating and growing this game. It's up to them to show us what they want to show us when they want to show us. We don't get to
Hmm.
dictate that. I mean, we feel like we should based on our previous experience. But look where our previous experience landed us. If you want the same kind of treatment, then expect the same kind of result, right? Like, you know what I mean?
Yep.
This is different now. They will show us what they can show us when they want to show us. I want to see the cards. I want to know about gameplay. Of course I do. But I want them to show me when they're ready to show me.
Well, I want to pose this question to you, and I want your honest opinion on it. What do you think is more effective when you're trying to revitalize a brand that has so much weight on it because of the previous administration? Would you have a 12 to 8 week targeted campaign ad wise, or would you shorten that to 4 to 6 weeks to where it's still fresh and it's not a 3 month process leading up to a release? Like it makes way more sense, in my opinion, for you to have a 4 to 6 week targeted campaign showing everybody all of these things with finalized product, with all of the actual images of stuff, instead of it actually being renderings or this or that, having physical, real things, versus trying to hype up something 12 to 8 weeks before it's physically going to be in people's hands. And I keep
This is
trying to stress that to people.
this
And
is the problem with the TikTok culture, brother. Everybody wants everything now. You can just swipe up to the next one and get it now, get it now, get it now. You go on Amazon and pay $10 and get it delivered by 9 p.m. tonight if that's what you want. Like, that's just the world that we live in, you know? But I agree with you 100%. A shorter, targeted, direct campaign when everything is ready to go and set in stone is what I would do, as opposed to drawing it out with dribs and drabs of this may be coming, this may be happening, and, you know, all that sort of
Hmm.
stuff.
And so like, and you have to think, this is also, and we don't know anything about actually what it is, if it is one. Like, this is the first time I feel like us as a community also have ever had to experience an ad campaign too.
Yeah.
Um, when it comes to Retro Zoo, there was no marketing at all. We were the marketing, the community, the content creators. We were the ones that marketed for Retro Zoo. It wasn't until right around New York Comic Con and Black Friday that they really started even utilizing the YouTube channel and TikTok.
Yeah.
Like they didn't have any sort of real social media presence whatsoever because we were the social media presence. We were the ones that were pushing their product. So they were like, ah, we don't have to spend any money on any of that.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel that Meta 2 has an actual marketing campaign that we're going to see over the coming weeks. Like I feel like, and it's going to be something. It's something that we're not used to. Like because again, like, did you ever see a MetaZoo ad? Did you ever see an advertisement like an actual like 10-15 second ad for MetaZoo?
Times Square, does that count for the rat promo? Let's not go in. Let's not dive down that fucking rabbit hole.
Okay, I mean, I'll give you Times Square.
But
Anything
that was
else?
it. No, no, no.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's so it's so mind-boggling when you actually think about it that they existed for 3 years without any sort of targeted marketing campaign because we were the ones that were the ones that were marketing it for
Yeah.
them. And like, yeah, and they paid for the ad. That's it. Yeah, they paid for the Times Square ad, and that's pretty much it. And it was a way of actually bringing up basically people into the community by seeing MetaZoo and taking a picture to get a Rat King promo that they were only going to print a certain amount of. There's people that actually took the photo, but then we come to find out that there are like 1,000 more extra. Like it just oh my god, that opened up Pandora's box.
I just want,
Anyway,
I just want to clear up Manny's comment as well. There was a reasoning that they gave that didn't line up. I'm pretty sure Charlie said what he said before the product was announced, that it was app print. And I can understand that now you're asking the question, well, now that it's app print, can we see the back of the cards? And the answer of that to that question is what we just covered. It should be like, no, why do you don't need to see it? Yes, now the reason is no longer because it might change. At that point in time, it might have been the reason, it might change. But at this point in time, it's like, well, no, we're not going to show you because we've got a marketing campaign that we're going to spend a bunch of money on, and you're going to see it then. That's
yeah,
what I mean. It's hard. It's hard to shift your mindset from what we were used to what it is now. But this is the way every other game is that I'm involved in. MetaZoo is the only one that would ping me with drips and drabs of spoilers, and we'd all be talking about spoilers. It was the only
hmm
one because it's not the way that the business is usually done.
it's one of those where we have never. I feel like we have never actually had or witnessed a targeted campaign ad wise for anything MetaZoo. And everything, like you said, was pretty much spoiled. Almost, pretty much, almost the entirety of every set was spoiled. That was one of the I hated. I liked how they actually did the native one, but all the other sets leading up to that, we knew pretty much every single card that was in the set 2 weeks before release.
Yeah.
Like we knew a lot of the big bangers 2 weeks before we actually had anything physically in our hands. if we could even get stuff. Because then I go back to native where you couldn't even get the product because like it hadn't even shown up yet. And it's just what I we're in we're in new territory that we're not used to. But this is territory that every other major TCG they go through. I mean, there are at least one to two, if not more, like just 10, 15-second clips when you're scrolling through like YouTube or Facebook Reels or something. Like Pokemon, boom, we'll have an ad for the next set coming out, blah 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 blah. And it's only a 10-second clip, but like that's stuff that we never experienced that with MetaZoo. Like we never actually saw. I never once saw any sort of ad of buy my product.
Yeah.
And again, that's just kind of mind-boggling when you think about it that they existed for that long without any sort of targeted ad campaign. Like I don't know. Again, it was us, and maybe it was all us. Like we were the ones that basically pushed the product. Um,
Did Cedo
so,
with this? Did they sell streamer kit packs on that whatnot?
yep, streamer pack kits, the promos,
I did not know
um,
that.
the
You
actual
fucking
playmat.
dogs. Oh my god. I can't believe they actually made them.
Right.
Dude, that blows my
All right.
mind. I
So,
honestly thought they didn't even exist. I didn't even know that. Oh,
well, the thing, honestly, well, I will say, I don't want to jump off of gameplay theory, but I do want to say this while it's fresh. I think one of the things that honestly the most sad is people are buying those things, those cards and other stuff like that, stuff that wasn't released, and then they're coming to Facebook and trying to flip it for more money, or they're going to eBay and trying to flip it for more money. And honestly, all I'm going to say about that is, at the end of the day, if people wanted that, if people still wanted that product, they wanted those promos, they wanted whatever it is, they would go on those streams and get it.
yeah,
Like,
it's true.
don't buy anything from any of these streams, any of these eBay accounts, thinking that you can actually flip it to make money. Because, first off, rude. Second off, it's readily available if somebody wants it.
Everybody
Like,
knows, except me, obviously. I mean, I've only watched one of those streams, and I was like, ugh, can't handle
I've
this.
only watched a handful of them because honestly, it upset. I get so upset at old admin because again, it's more lies. It's more things of, oh, this shouldn't exist, or this shouldn't actually, there shouldn't be this many of this thing, or they blatantly just told us that this didn't exist, or there weren't these certain numbers of certain things, when in actuality there are hundreds and thousands of them. Like, if you want to buy something, but do not for any reason buy something thinking you're going to be able to flip it to make more money, because everything that you were buying will be or is available to anybody else to buy. The Rat King is a perfect example. Yes, vested. The Rat King is a perfect example of that. Um. Anyway, though, we're gonna jump back though actually to M2, and we, like I said, we don't really have much info about the new gameplay. I do want to actually go over though that we do have this. Aha. This is an image that they teased on the Discord. These are the first four aura types that we're actually going to have for the base set. It is Earth, Fire, Lightning, and Air. So Air is a new aura type that we had not seen before. Um, these are the only four again that are going to be in base set. That does not mean that MetaZoo is going to be limited to just these four aura types, because as you can see here, with expansions 1 through 4, they're going to introduce new aura types. And again, this does not also mean that we're going to be limited to just 8 too. That's just what they have on the image. I'm going to go out on a limb and actually say that it looks like set 2, because of them putting it blue, we might get water. I don't know. Um,
Ooh, I like that. Bit of
I
speculation back.
I
That is
don't
some
know.
speculation.
Um, I'm interested to see what air exactly is, because we didn't actually have an air aura type. with RetroZoo. Um, but I'm interested, and I like them.
Can you bring the picture back up again?
Yeah, yeah, I like the idea that they're going to introduce the different aura types with the sets, because instead of them dropping 8 to 12 different aura types at once, they're going to start it out with four and then slowly introduce each time, or at least for the first four expansions, a
I
new aura
was
type.
I was just trying to work out, like, usually with these aura types, like, you've got one that you're strong against and one that you're weak against.
Hmm.
I was just trying to sort of figure that out, but it's kind of tough because, like, you got fire, lightning, wind, and then what you would assume is earth.
Um, hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how the
That's what
resistance
I mean.
is. I don't know
Which
how
makes
any
it
of that
it's
actually would
interesting.
work. Yeah. That's yeah, yeah, you're right, especially with those four archetypes. That is interesting. I wonder what the resistances and weaknesses, other stuff like that would actually be.
Mm.
Um, but we are going to be getting new aura types in the future with the different sets. And again, just because that one, the expansion one question mark is blue, I honestly feel like we're going to get water probably with the first
Yeah.
expansion, the second set that's coming out.
Quote
But
Turmentic. Go on, quote Turmentic. He said it's water.
them, them actually though compartmentalizing it and giving us four at the beginning and then introducing one per set, in my opinion, is smart because it gives them the ability to be able to make a game that is consistent versus dropping 8 to 12 different aura types at one time, being like, good luck, guys. Like, this allows them to actually have synergy between the different aura types. It allows them to actually, honestly, truly play test a certain aura archetype before it's introduced into the game. Because like we don't know if like we don't really know honestly what type of status effects we're going to have with the new game, and especially with old zoo, certain aura types were prone to have more correlation with a specific status effect than other ones. Like I'll use flame and burn for example. Like burn predominantly was always on a flame beastie. So maybe they're going to, with them introducing the actual other aura types, we'll get more status effects if they've toned them down. Because I'll get into that a little bit when we get to some of the artwork, because there is specifically one artwork that I'm like, haha, I think this is actually tells us something. But I want to wait till we get to that before I actually go into it. Um, I am interested though why water was not picked as one of the original four. That is something that I am very curious about because traditionally I feel water would be, but instead it was replaced by air, or you could say it was replaced by lightning, maybe. I don't know.
I
But
think it will be due to what cryptids or creatures make up the base set. I think that probably
well,
plays more part.
I'm gonna because this is actually something that I had a little back and forth with in the Discord actually with somebody. I don't think that cryptids or beasties, whatever we're calling them, I don't think they should be limited to the aura types that RetroZoo established.
I don't think
Just
they are.
because
That's why I think
RetroZoo
there's an
made
air
this
type.
a blank beastie does not mean that it has to always be a blank beastie. Like
Yeah.
at the end of the day, weird or not weird, but MetaZoo RetroZoo is the one that established what aura type these creatures are. Um, so just because like Loveland Frogman, for example, just because we don't have a water aura in base set, I'm still fully anticipating Loveland Frogman being in that base set, just because of how beloved he is in the community and in the story and things like that. Does that mean like they can't? But he wouldn't
Here's,
be a water denomination though.
but if they're already planning set 2, 3, 4, why would you put every beastie that is an absolute banger
I'm
or a
not
fan
saying put
favorite
every
in the base
beastie.
set?
I'm not saying put every beastie, but I'm saying if Third Eye Man can actually be lightning, why can't Love be Earth? like he actually was before. He was Water Earth,
Maybe
actually, for
he
set
is,
nine.
or maybe he won't be, and maybe he's, the cover boy for set two. Maybe that's the case.
Okay, fair, 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 fair.
Like
But
I know me, for me, if I was doing it, I would be thinking about those sorts of things from a marketing perspective. Look at this for example. Like, God, what was it? Was it Hero Quest? Hero Quest One. They put every single bang and beastie in set one, so set
hmm
two was absolute poop because there was no good ones left, right? So why would
yeah,
you? Why would that they made that mistake? That previous company and other companies have probably done it before too. Made that mistake. So I'm hoping there are beasties that I love or cryptids that I love that won't necessarily make it into set one because they are going to be the chasers in set two or the chasers in set three. You know what I mean?
hmm
Especially when you're looking at cryptids that exist, it is a big pool, right? There's a lot of cryptids that exist, but at the same time, they're going to get to a point where they're going to have to invent and create cryptids as well that don't necessarily already have a fan base to keep growing the brand.
that's well. I wouldn't use the word create. I would say they're going to have to actually find because there are thousands and thousands of cryptids throughout the planet, and we've already actually seen in the stuff that they have teased us with the more global idea that they actually have for the cryptids too, because at least three or four of the cryptids that they teased us with are cryptids that aren't found in North America. And I know from the conversations that Charlie has actually had, it's not a North America focus anymore. It is a more global focus. Um, and like that myself, actually, that excites me because I want to learn more about cryptids from around the world. I want to actually know more about like the yokai. I want to know more about Scandinavian lore, about Australian Aboriginal dreaming, things like that. Like I want these things to actually be fleshed out and represented instead of it just being all North America based, because that's honestly what the original
Yeah.
set really was all North America based. And I think if we're going to actually grow this to be a global brand, it has to be a global brand. It has to have representation from all
Yes.
over like all over the world. Like, and the ambassador beasties don't do it. Like, they were a really cool nod. I that's awesome, but they weren't. It wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to entice non specifically Americans to get into the game. And like that is a big I'm excited to actually see more of the international non-United States of America beasties. Like I can't wait to actually see more of those. The only other real gameplay theory that because I have a whole video I made like 2 months ago or so about like theories of what they could change, because one of the biggest complaints I always heard when it came to Retro Zoo was how hard the game was, and it was depending on what deck you were using and the strategy you had, it was insanely difficult sometimes.
I know. I have to try and
Um,
teach people down here that have never seen it before how to play it.
and like personally, me, I think one of the things I'm most excited about when it comes to New Zoo is the simplification of the game, because I can't wait to actually teach my 9 year old and my 7 year old how to play New Zoo. Because the only reason I was able to pick it up as quick as I did, I feel, was because of the extensive knowledge that I have playing Magic the Gathering and Yu Gi Oh! And Pokemon and all of these other card games that I grew up with. I was able to correlate, okay, this means that. This is similar to this effect over here that this game has. So I was able to pick it up, but even then, it was still there were still confusing aspects to it to me, and some of the stuff didn't fully make sense. But if I wouldn't have had that previous knowledge of these other TCGs, these other games, I don't know if I would have not only picked it up, as quick as I did, but enjoyed it as much as I did.
Yeah.
Because there were aspects of MetaZoo that I loved because you couldn't do that in other games. But then there were other ways of being able to say, oh, this is just like Magic the Gathering, or this is, I mean, Terras. Terras are no different than cards that you play in Yu-Gi-Oh, in my opinion. And that was just one of the biggest things I always heard was the difficulty of jumping in and trying to learn how to play the game. And that's one of the reasons I was such a big advocate for once we hit yokai, we were going to have a different format. Standard was not going to be able to be standard anymore because there had been no, there would, in my opinion, and I don't know, I'm not a game developer. There would have been no way to segue from Cryptid Nation into Yokai Island with the way that it was with no ban list. Like it was. I just felt like it was. The more I look at it now, it was just setting itself up for failure. I remember being at Earth Tower and them having to make judgment calls, like high end judgment calls on the final match because the rules weren't clear on how things operated and things worked. And the decision they made being slightly controversial, like there should be no reason you're making those high profile decisions where there's $50,000 on the line that one judge will agree with, but you go to a different tournament and it'd be a different rule completely. Like there was no consistency with Retro Zoo. It was all on the discretion of the judge, and that's not sustainable in my opinion. So it had to change. It was going to be forced to change, whether it continued or not, because there was no sustainability in my opinion. And I just did my Turmentic rant thing, so I'm going to be quiet and open up my Pepsi real quick and let you talk for a minute.
No, well, I
Welcome
think
back to
yeah,
2024.
it's not the perfect segue, but we should probably talk about the collecticons. We need to keep moving because it's almost been 2 hours and we're halfway through the first round of
Oh my
collecticons.
God, you're right. Okay, so um, they are planning on going to the first four Collecticons. Um, I do not actually have that image, but I can come over. Well, no, I don't have that image. I know the first one they're going to is Miami, and then the next one is in Texas, I think, and then the next one is in Orlando, and then I think the last one is actually in Texas too.
Yeah,
Um,
we're
that's
going around
not
the
saying
big ones.
yeah, that's not saying that they're not going to any other cons, any other collecticons, any other like cryptid festivals, but those are just the first four that they have committed to. Miami is going to be insane because Miami is the same weekend as the street date for the new base set. Um, Leading up to the collecticons, though, they have what they are calling alpha product. And there was a lot of controversy when they first actually announced the alpha product because people were like, "Oh, see, that's them saying they're not going to be able to actually get things out on time." And it was like, no, that's not what they're saying. They're literally like Charlie had to come in and basically be like, "Alpha product is not a supplement for base set. It is not replacing base set. It is going to be something that actually helps elevate base set." So we've come to find out now that alpha product will actually be available hopefully a couple weeks to a week or so before base set hits the streets. They are going to have alpha product though. And again, I think it's only like maybe packs and learn to play decks. I'm not entirely positive, but that we do know that they are going to have some sort of alpha product at the collecticons as well too, using that as a way of trying to get people interested, people actually into playing it. Um, from what I remember them saying though, the alpha product is to complement the base set release. It is not to replace it. It is not to do basically not take away from base set release. It is supposed to complement it.
Charlie said it
Um,
was setting a runway, which makes perfect sense. Like, okay, here's a quick glimpse of what you're getting into. Here's a learn to play deck so you can play the game. So that by the time base set does come, you know, you can basically get it and collect it and trade and play with it. Like that's the idea, right? Like he's setting a runway for its release, which I think is totally fair because the reality is they would have alpha product that they've created to test it themselves anyway.
hmm um, the big thing too with the alpha product is that they said that there would be multiple different ways of actually getting that product. Besides the collecticons, we have no other further information about that. I theorized that they could actually do some sort of a stream or something like that, where they're actually like teaching people how to play via YouTube or Twitch or something like that, because that was actually something that RetroZoo used to do a lot. Was they actually used to stream all the towers and stuff on like Twitch, so they could use something like that as a way of being able to show people gameplay, teach people the new game, show off some of the cards, other stuff like that. Use that as a way of actually doing giveaways. But again, we have no, that's all theorizing. We have no idea how any of that product is actually going to be given out, except for we know that it will be at the CollectorCon. Something else that's actually really huge, and I'm actually going to, because I think I saved it. I do have it. This is the update that we got pretty much from Charlie 2 weeks ago or so. When we were talking about them printing cards, they're launching the product to Collecticon at the end of March on the 28th. That's alpha products are looking very likely to land a little before the base set, which would be a great chance to learn to play before the full product release. And that's what I was saying right there. We'll have multiple ways to get these planned. Not entirely sure exactly how those other ways of being planned are, but I know we'll get more information soon. The next thing is what I want to focus on next, though. Set two has lots of art already finalized, and then if you look underneath, set two is designed and has moved to development. That's huge, in my opinion, because they're not waiting to see the success that the base set actually has. They're already full into finishing set two, and then underneath that, if you saw, they're already working on sets three and four. That speaks a lot to me because the only way they could be in that position is if when they first started bidding on, and Charlie actually said this, I believe, in Nick's interview, when they first started the bidding process back at the end of July, beginning of August, they had to have started working on this before they knew that they won the bid. That's the only way they could actually be so far ahead with set one and set two and be working on three and four. So like
Well,
they had plans for months before they even knew that they actually even won the bid.
that and you look at who is involved in GQL. There is more experience there than almost anywhere else, legitimately, across the history, 30 years of TCGs. So if anybody could buy it and then create it and make it happen and get it to where it is that team. If if it is what you're saying or if it is not, I believe that team could turn that around in the time frame that they did.
It's just them already having most of the artwork in set two being finished and it being sent to development. In my head, what they mean by it's being sent to development is, remember the image that we had of all of the different auras. Well, set two is going to introduce a new aura, so that's probably what they mean by development. Is they're literally making sure that that aura works well and complements the rest of the game. Um, so that's cool because that means that we could honestly get a second set maybe before, like maybe sometime in the middle of the summer.
I would
I mean, I
assume I would assume they will follow a usual TCG cycle, which would be a core set release every 2 to 4 months. So some
okay,
some
so pretty much
companies
every quarter.
some companies like Pokemon do it every 3 months basically. Magic do it like
hmm
every 2 months. if MetaZoo slide in and drop a set every 4 months, even at that point while they're getting started, I think it'll be somewhere in that window. You can expect a set every 2, 3, or 4 months. I reckon is just based on who it is that's creating the game and Charlie that owns that owns and is the president. Like I think it'll be that kind of time frame. And like Maddie said earlier, there won't be 48 exclusive promos where you have to take a photo here or drop your pants there to be able to get them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and that would make sense them actually releasing a set pretty much like every quarter or so like that.
Yeah.
And then going back to that statement that Charlie made too in the Discord, sets 3 and 4 have already have game design work done. So that means that they're already focused down the line on sets 2, 3, and 4, and actually making sure that they work with what has been established already. And like that type of like I don't know that it speaks volumes to me. Like again, that they've technically owned the company for 4 months, maybe now. Like what, October, November, December, January? Yeah, roughly 4 months or so, and they're already focused on set 3 or 4. So they already have that sort of confidence in the base set and specifically the second set coming out. I don't know. That just really spoke to me because like normally I don't feel like we would have gotten any sort of update on a set 2 or 3, or sorry, a set 3 or 4. Like so I don't know.
So I just read comments. Cino, very true. Prismatic is brutal. And then Damo, I must have missed the drop your pants promo.
The last thing, honestly, we have to talk about right now is the new art. Um, the new art, for some reason, some of it has been controversial to some of the community. It seems like it's the same 5 to 10 people or so that seem to keep getting upset with the art, saying it's not MetaZoo. And that brings me back to something that Charlie said in specifically he when him and I actually talked, he brought it up with me, but he specifically said it in the Nick interview, which was what is MetaZoo? And it's not just the art, it's not just the game. There's so many different aspects to being able to answer that question. Um, and I would like to point out also to for anybody that is upset with any of the artwork or anything like that, that the last legit thing that old admin did was run the fan art contest where they encouraged people to actually use new mediums that hadn't been used before. And some of that stuff that came out was amazing using claymation and yarn, digital art, charcoal, like some of the stuff. Like you could probably still, if you go into Instagram and type in MetaZoo Fan Art 2023, some of the stuff that pops up is amazing. And so some of these, the artwork doesn't look like the traditional watercolor, but they kind of had been moving away from that to begin with. So that's I wanted to just preface that with that. But you can tell a huge difference, in my opinion, between some of these arts. Like the first one we have is Flashlight Frog, and the original. That's the original right there that Poncho did. Okay, super cool. I actually really like it. But this is the new one, and in my opinion, and I'm all about story. I'm all about lore. I'm all about that's this entire channel is based off of. That new one, in my opinion, tells such a bigger story.
It's
Like that's
still
the
that's
one.
still Poncho as well. Like Poncho
Yeah.
now, Poncho basically now. First one is direct. Like they're like, this is how it needs to look. This is what it needs to look like. The second one, you can tell it's like do what you want to do. Because if you look at any of Poncho's prints that he makes himself, this is what
Hmm.
they look like. They do not
Yeah.
look like the other one. They look like the second image. That's
And
what
it's
he wants to do.
just looking between the two. Also, though, the new one, like I said, it tells such a story, and that's the biggest takeaway from the new art is that every single one of these images tells a story somehow. Like it isn't just a static shot of a beastie. Like, because I mean, I love Poncho, but that is a static shot of just a beastie. So I don't know. I enjoyed every single piece of art that we've actually seen. The next one is Goofus Bird, which the original is this right here, which of course Kelsey did, and then you have the new Goofus Bird that one of the new artists, because that's the other thing too. They've introduced like close to 9 new artists or so, 10 new artists.
Yeah,
This right here is the new Goofus Bird by an artist named Rudy Hill. And I'm a huge Kelsey fan. Most of the artwork that I actually have is from Kelsey. But I will say this, that looks like it has more life. Like that, I it
I think.
looks. What? Sorry, what were you gonna say?
Well, I think even just in the first two, you can see a wider appeal to a greater like audience. So like in both Poncho's new iteration and then that iteration, I feel like that image there will appeal to more people than go back than Kelsey's one. You show somebody that doesn't know MetaZoo or what it's about, and then you show somebody the other one, more people just in general, that's going to appeal to more people, which is great for the growth of the future of this game.
Well, it's even down to the smaller aspects though, because like if you look at the first one again, it looks very static, and then you go to the other one, you're like, okay, well that might be static too, but look around the wings.
Yeah,
You
it's
see all of the
moving.
white streaks? It's moving. You can tell that it's moving, and like that again, the artwork telling a story is huge. It's huge to me. All right, so the next one actually, the original. This is Dragon of Oconto Falls. The original is by
Bingo.
the one and the only Isaac, Isaac Sky Lee,
I'm going to say
and
that
I love
before you change it because that is a beautiful piece of artwork.
I love this. This got
Yeah.
me really excited. Kelsey's the one that actually did the new artwork for Dragon of Oconto, and you can still see that it actually has like a lot of touches of Kelsey's, particularly other stuff like that. But I don't know what it is about this Dragon of Oconto that Kelsey did, but I love the color shading on it.
It's
And
beautiful.
there's like, I mean, again, like there's a huge difference like putting them up next to each other between the actual artworks. And this is one of the few that I feel really actually complements and is not a copy of the original, but it basically is an embodiment of the original between the two.
Yeah.
Like it isn't. I wouldn't call it a glow up like I said with Third Eye Man or anything like that. But it is definitely something that seems more concrete. I guess is
That's
what
a
it is.
good that's a good point by Sino as well. You can actually see personality within the second one, even just in the eye and the
That's
the,
true.
the way the
And
head
then
is
next the
shaped.
eye, yeah, yeah. You're right. Like the smite little like the little smile that it actually has. You're completely right on that. That's a good call, so you know. Um, the next two, I'm really excited actually about. It's Ding Bell, of course. The first one is by the amazing Lily, and you could actually see. I feel like that's the embodiment of Ding Bell right there.
Yeah.
Ding Bell went through a couple different iterations with Retro Zoo. This is pretty much about the same as the last of the Ding Bell cards that we actually got from Retro Zoo. But the cool thing is, or wait, no, this one, I believe. Hold on, because there's two Ding Bells that they actually showed us. One of them is Lily's, and the other one is Emily
Emily.
Nancy.
Yeah.
And I actually think this is the Emily Nancy one, and I believe this is the Lily one. Um, and it's awesome to me because even though they're the same beastie, they have such different personality, in my opinion, between the two cards.
Totally.
And that's something else too. Like, and CNO just said it. He was like, "I'm so glad they picked up Emily." Emily Nancy has been a huge community artist for MetaZoo for the last couple years, and she's insanely talented. And I'm
Very much.
extremely stoked that they actually picked her up and they're actually using her artwork. She's a huge asset, in my opinion, to MetaZoo. Um, but those actually those scream the like old school ding bell to me. Um, the next one we have another twofer right here, and this is called the Night Vision Squonk, and it's
Which
by an
is,
artist named Issa.
I
Um,
love this.
well, it's just funny because it actually shows, I guess, items for specific cryptids. So like maybe that's actually teasing something. I'm not
No,
entirely sure.
his reputation is very goofy,
Really?
whereas this kind of adds an element of like, hey, like I'm a bit goofy, but I'll get you if I need to get you. You know what I mean?
Well, at first I thought it was a stone carving at first, to be honest with you.
No,
But
it's got
the
like
next one,
tears coming out of his right eye.
the next one we have is another snipe, and this one
There it
is
is.
done by an artist named Sonderflex. Um, and again, going between the two of them, you can see the similarities. Of course, this one is actually colored differently because it's supposed to. I guess it's night vision. Um, but going from the old Squonk cards to this has so much life to it, in my opinion. Like it again, it's telling a story, and it's also the differences between like if you go and look, and this is actually a theory video that I still need to work on. But you see the top of Snipe's head in this photo?
Yeah.
It has a leaf. Okay, look at the top of Snipe in this photo though. It has like a little electric bolt of some sort. So they're
Different types
giving
of
us
stuff.
well, there. I have a whole full theory actually about how cryptids in the new game basically are not the types that we actually think they are, or they have the ability to be different types. And it was based off of the snipe picture, that this one right here, because like I said, this one actually has the leaf coming out of his head. That one actually has, it looks like some sort of a lightning bolt or something like that coming out of his head. And the Christmas print actually has the snipe with like the little lightning bolt coming out of its head on it. It doesn't have the actual like leaf. But I haven't had time to actually make that since I hurt my arm and got back from work
Maybe
and
that
everything like that.
was a chibi snipe and you just didn't pick on
I don't know. I don't know. But there's a couple different actually other examples of it too. I'm not going to go into because I want people to watch that video once I actually make it. So that was the snipes, and
This one
we
I really
actually
love. This one I
next
got
we
really
have
excited about.
radio. This is the old radioactive hornets, which we have right here, which is
Because
it's okay.
I tell you right now, it was a card that I used a lot in a deck, the Radioactive Hornets, but
Uh huh.
it never excited me looking at it. And then when you go to the new image of a
Well,
Radioactive Hornet,
this one was made by one of the original OGs, Bruins. But then we actually have two
look at
different
that.
radioactive hornets,
Yeah,
and like
dude.
yeah,
I love this. I love
when
this
I
shot.
saw when I saw these two, I knew we were in for something that was new.
Do me a favor, Rob. Go back to the original for a second. What about that looks radioactive other than the electric bolts?
Fair. Well, I mean,
Look
and
at that.
it gets
Look at
even
that.
better though,
Nuclear power
honestly, with
plants
this.
in the back. Look at the stinger on it. It's hectic, man. This thing is
Like
wild. I love this one.
both of these, both of them. These are Sunderflex and another artist named Wade Lutz that actually did the two new art for Radioactive Hornets.
I
But
love
yeah,
it.
this compared to that, like that's what I keep going on about how these actually are telling stories. You could literally
Exactly,
take any of
Tornado.
these images that we've
Exactly.
just seen and write an entire short story based off of just it, based off of just the background, everything that's going on with it. It would be I mean, you could do that, I guess, with the original, but it would be way harder than that. Like, or I mean, it's just like, yeah, I know that the art looks different. I know that they're using different mediums. Um, but I still can't get over the fact of much, how much story, without them giving us any sort of story or how the world operates or anything like that, how much story we're actually getting in this artwork. Because in my opinion, we didn't really start getting this type of level of story in the artwork until Native. Native, honestly, in my opinion, was the first time that it was the entirety of the set from beginning to end told stories through the artwork. It wasn't just static images of beasties,
Do you
which is
think
what we
Mike
got.
ever wrote? Do you think Mike ever
We,
wrote the book?
I don't think he did. I don't think he did.
Just while you're
Um,
talking about the story, I was like, we were promised a
well,
story for like
we were
years.
promised a story for here. I'll bring that back up at the end because I want to talk about the lore and the story and everything at the end. Because I do have words to say about
All right, cool, cool,
that.
cool.
The next one we have is Metal Man of Alabama, which
Yeah,
is just
yeah.
killer.
These are,
This is, and I might
I
actually
love
pronounce this wrong. I apologize, but this is a new artist named Iwanaga. Um, One of my favorite things I want to point out is the ding bell in the background, and it's a little hard to actually see the image on here. Definitely go to the Discord and look at it. But the ding bell in the background of this does not look good. I guess it
He
doesn't. I
looks,
don't know how else
he
you would
looks,
say that.
he
He has a
looks
mischievous
sinister. So
grin.
basically, what he's done is you're looking at an image that tells a story. That ding bell has Frankenstein, that metal man of Alabama, and he's sitting back there going, "Look what I just made! Look how badass that is."
Get out! Oh my god, I hadn't even thought about that.
That's
Because
what that
technically,
image, that
Metal Man of
story, that
Alabama,
image
oh my
tells me.
god, Ding Bell might be able to actually control Metal Man because he is literally a machine. Oh, that's crazy. That's crazy. I didn't even thought about that because that's true. Ding Bell can actually make anything, any sort of machine work. Oh my god, that's crazy. So yeah, Metal Man of Alabama, and again, look like based off the old one, based off the original one to this, again, the aura that this thing is actually emanating, the story that this thing is actually telling from the setting, it's completely like completely different than the original art.
Yeah.
Um, the next one we're gonna show is by a new artist named Morgan Beam, and this I think is probably the darkest artwork we've seen. And which is surprising that I feel like it's darker than Poncho's. But this is Casey Jones. Um, I love that they are actually still using some of the folklore characters, not just cryptids that we had introduced in Retro Zoo. Casey Jones being one of them. We don't know if the train behind him is Ghost Train. We don't know if Ghost Train is part of it. We don't know if that's just the train that Casey Jones haunts or anything like that. But this, in my opinion, by far is probably the darkest artwork that we've actually seen.
And probably the most similar to, I guess, its counterpart as well, I think.
Uh I don't know. I would argue that Drop Bear is very similar to the original art Drop Bear.
Mm, I mean, I
We
guess,
got
I
one
guess
more.
both.
We got one more. Then
I
we'll
guess.
go to yeah.
All right, all right, all right.
Um, but this right here, I really I liked how simplistic it actually looked. But again, you can actually see the billowing smoke coming from the train on the bottom of it, while it's like Casey Jones just stands in the front. Like that's cool. And again, I loved the fact that confirmed they were using folklore creatures as folklore characters as well too, versus just cryptids.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because there's so much that they can pull from all across the world, folklore wise, when it comes to characters like Casey Jones. Like that's super cool. Um, the next one is Puckwudgie, and this
Aquachi.
is Pao Esparro is the artist for this one. Now we talked about traits before, and the reason why I wanted to wait till Puckwudgie was if you actually look at this card, this might be teases for burn, poison, and paralyze. Because if you look at the individual arrows, one's on fire, one has poison, and the other one sparkles there at the bottom. So I'm wondering if that's actually a tease for some sort of status effect. And I love the tribal marks that Puckwudgie actually has. Same thing with the actual images that it actually has on side of the bow and arrow. And again, that common theme that I keep talking about, it tells a story. You love how it looks like he's posing for the cave painting on the rock. Yeah, that actually, there's a lot of correlation between the rock and the way that it's actually posing too. That's kind of funny. Cojito, how are you doing, by the way, dude? I didn't even know that you were here. Um, but yeah, Puckwudgie was probably one of my favorites just because I felt like it actually showed us some of the gameplay spoilers with some of the
I,
traits
I,
and some of that
I,
was up in the
I did
air.
not pick up on that originally, so
Yeah,
that's cool.
so flame, poison, and that could either be flash or it could be um, paralyzed. But in my opinion, I think
Could be
it's
paralyzed. They could call it stun. It could be. It's obviously going to
yeah,
be
true.
something along those
But
lines.
I don't know why they would have illustrated those arrows like that if it wasn't some sort of a tease for status effects.
No, totally.
Um, the next one is my favorite, Jet Yates, coming out with a banger right off the bat. This is the new Drop Bear. I honestly, like I said, I feel like this is very similar to the original one. This
Show me the
gives
original.
me I don't have it with me actually. I didn't grab the original one. I only copied the images that were actually on the Discord. I know, and I was looking because I usually mine always sat right there, but I don't know what I did with it. Um, but I feel like it is one of the few that actually looks like the original. So you got that, and bam. Oh no, that looks way darker. Oh my god, and the little part on its head too, where it actually fell and it hurt itself. I don't know. I could still see how they're similar, but I definitely do think the new iteration is definitely darker in nature.
Yeah, I
I don't
think
know. As an
I like the
Australian, how
new
do
one.
you feel about drop air?
I like both. I think that the new one suits it a lot more, right? Because a koala, which is what a drop bear is idealized, that's the idea. That's what we tell people, that a koala is a drop bear, right?
Hmm.
They are very cute and very calm creatures. So that one, you can see how cute it is with its little love heart fluff across its chest, and it still looks very cuddly, but its face is telling you a totally different story. The rest of it's not too bad because koala claws are big and sharp, but it's a cute animal. It won't attack you. But this face on that one says, "Oh no, I'm gonna get you." Whereas this one in particular looks just like a little bit more cheeky, I
It looks
guess.
like it's gonna. It just wants a hug. That's all it does. It
Yeah.
just wants a hug. Um, the next one that we have is probably honestly my favorite so far. And I don't know why. I can't explain why. But this guy is Advaris, and it is a flame chicken, and this is by Jebediah Couture.
Is
And
Ashley Boyd still here? Because she would love this.
this is probably my favorite one. I don't know. I can't tell you why. Honestly, it might be because of the song "Chicken Attack." When I posted it on Instagram, I that was the song that I paired it with just because I love that song. But it's I can't remember. Hold on, I have the Discord pulled up right here. Um, because what is it? It's a Lithuanian. It's a Lithuanian mythical fire chicken at Varis. And yeah, I'm stoked about it. I'm so stoked actually for this card. Just because of the amount of detail that's actually in it. I mean, there's so much going on in this card. Like so much going on in that card.
I love it. I love it.
The next one we have is Hodag and Billywhack. This is we don't know. I don't know if we actually got a name for this card like we did the other ones, but this is the first and only gameplay tease that we actually got from MetaZoo, and I say that because they named this a face-to-face card. Um, and literally reading from the Discord right now, it says face to face is an upcoming MetaZoo strategy card that forces a confrontation between two players' cryptids. So that's all we have information wise on this card. The this also to me screams retro zoo art style. Like it does. It gives me strong like combination of Nightfall and native vibes for some reason. Um, but we have no idea what face to face cards are, how they actually work in the gameplay. I mean, I guess we can assume based off of what the Discord said that it forces two beasties to fight. Um, but I mean, we don't fully actually know how gameplay works. This is by a studio called Gammon Studios, by the way. And I'll be honest, I kind of like that. Not all of the artwork is done by because they've done this a couple times. I feel there are certain artists or groups that are doing artwork versus it being a specific one individual artist. Like it seems like some of this stuff, like with Gammon Studios, for example, I'm wondering if it's like they're like, hey, we need these cards, and this studio that has multiple artists working for it bust out the cards, or if it's individual from and owns a studio that's actually doing all the artwork. I'm interested in that. What are your thoughts on face to face cards?
I mean, we don't know anything. But
That's fair.
what I will say,
I
what I
know. I
will say,
realized as soon as I asked you, it was like I set you up for awesomeness.
what I can say is I heard speculation. I can't remember who it was. Somebody was, comparing that to war, and that we would see things from war. And I just think that was the wrong take. I don't think that's what that card is, or I don't think that's what that artwork is. That is clearly some form of spell or enchantment card, and that is the artwork that fits on that. And you can obviously play it to force a battle if they have a blocker up or something and they can't use the blocker. You're like, well, I'm going to play this and then I can attack them and force that engagement, that battle. That's what I thought when I saw that. I did not see that and go, oh, maybe they are bringing some stuff from war. They had access to war images. They're
Mhm.
doing war this, war that. There will be no ties like between the two in that sense. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to see war cards or legacy, like.
I want to kind of go on that a little bit more too. I don't feel like we will see any artwork that had been originally made for War or Legacy or any of that, because at the end of the day, going back to what we originally talked about during the timeline, most of that I think was sold either by the artists themselves because they never got payment, or it was sold in that stream with Bailey and Mike. So it'd be really hard, I think, to use any of those illustrations because I'll be honest, I don't even know if M2 has those. I don't know if any of that stuff was ever digitized. I don't know like if that stuff was actually turned over when the bankruptcy actually was finalized. So like I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever see any of that actual artwork on physical MetaZoo cards.
Yeah.
Um, the last one I have for you is the one that we got last week and blew me away. This is Third Eye Man. Bruins did the original, and a new artist named Ruben Ratia actually did this guy. And somebody actually said this, I think, in the Discord as a way of trying to attack it. Like, oh, it looks like it's a snapshot directly from an anime. And I'm like,
That is
okay,
insane.
what's the issue with that? Like, we we always wanted a TV show. We always wanted the story. We always wanted it somehow. So like, why in essence is it a bad thing if it looks like it is literally like Cogito actually saying it's amazing story in that art? Like compared, and I wish I had the old one. I wish I had the old one. Actually, hold on. I think I do have the old one. Can I actually do that while I'm streaming, or is it going to mess
Is
things
that the
up?
one from Seance?
No, the old yes. No, the old one I think is that's the old guy.
That's from Seance.
So that's the old one versus this, and
They
like
are worlds
there's
apart, bro.
no
Worlds
there's
apart.
no comparison between the two,
Nah, no chance.
like at all. Like that is one of the biggest biggest changes art wise, in my opinion. And it that's specifically the one that I use the phrase glow up, just because like this tells such a story. Again, you could submit that to somebody as a writing prompt, and you could write an entire short story just based off of that. Now,
Yeah.
good luck trying it with that. And I'm not trying to diminish or put down any of the original art because that's what brought us together. That's what made MetaZoo back in the day. But just
Yeah.
like I was saying to somebody the other day, whereas like Mike Waddell is not MetaZoo, the old artwork is not MetaZoo. MetaZoo is such an amalgamation of so many different things when it comes to the cryptids, the lore, the personal aspects that those creatures have for yourself, like the community, the friend. Like MetaZoo is such an amalgamation of everything. And the other amazing thing is that MetaZoo is different for every individual. I
Yeah.
can answer that question. It's not going to be the same for you, and it's not going to be the same for CNO. It's not going to be the same for Manny, for Coquito. I mean, it's going to be different for every person. And that, honestly, in my opinion, is beautiful because it goes back again to word of mouth. It goes back to story. It goes back to these creatures that we've fallen in love with because of the stories that were passed down for generations, verbally, orally, like written down, how, what have you. And because of those being passed down, they become part of us. And so again, I always go back to it. MetaZoo, in my opinion, was always a very personal thing because your favorite beastie is not my favorite beastie. Your favorite cryptid is your favorite cryptid because of something that happened to you or some story you were told as a kid or because you went snipe hunting when you actually went hunting with your grandfather. Like there are, I mean, I think of like Chris from Castor Society and how the reason he fell in love with MetaZoo was because of the Lake Worth monster. Like, because he grew up with that story. I mean, like you have Ian from Cryptid Nation News, the Wood Devil of Coos County. Like that's literally one that was super close to where he lives. And it's so it always just came down to the personal relationship we have actually with these creatures. And that honestly, that was something that was just so special to it because it was so unique and individual, or it was so unique to the individual. Like there was never two stories that were the same, and it reminded me of like those creatures being reported for the first time. A lot of times when these creatures were reported for the first time, it was somebody telling somebody, "Guess what I just saw," or giving a full account description. I mean, going back to the artwork for some of these cryptids has changed throughout the years because of eyewitness accounts. Somebody saw something, thought it was this, did a description. 20 years later, somebody said they thought they saw something else, did a description. It looked almost exactly like the first one, but there was a little bit more detail. So, I mean, that's how the images of these creatures actually even change over time. And so it's almost meta in the meta in a way. Like I don't know if I'm making any sort of sense. I'm gonna let you talk for a minute. I'm sorry.
No, look, to be fair, I mean, what are we at? Fucking almost 2.5 hours. That's hectic.
Hey, buddy, do it big all the time.
Yeah, no, I can't remember how long we did this a year ago. That last one, I feel like that was a long one too. But
Yeah, they're always usually about two and a half. It seems.
yeah, I think we're in for a good ride. I think we're in for a good show. I honestly believe that, just based on even if I didn't know Charlie or the team on the level that I do, just if I was an outsider like anybody else, based on the history of the people that are involved with GQL, the amount of money that has already been spent to create the game, what we've seen in terms of artwork and storytelling, what we've seen in terms of Aura and expansion plans. If that doesn't give you faith, then that's cool. Bounce, bro. Because you're just hating for hating. You have no legible reason to hate on what's coming, because it's honestly, it's picture perfect. Yeah, I look at it now and go, Retro Zoo was great at the peak when I was loving it, but I look at this now and go, nah, this is the MetaZoo that when I said this game could be around forever, or have a really long life. This is the version of that that's going to be able to have that success. As we talked about earlier, the old version, even just in terms of working with sets like Yokai and No Ban List, and the way the whole company was run, it was just never going to get there under that. This is There is more promise and possibility moving forward now than there ever has been before.
Focus. There's more focus on the longevity of the franchise itself than
Yeah,
it is on actually making people rich. Like this is the first time I actually feel that the focus is on creating a product and a company that can outlast us. Like that was the whole point of why I jumped in on MetaZoo as hard as I did back in the day, was because I saw the potential of it being able to be something that becomes permanent. And now, after seeing some of the stuff that actually GQL has done with Charlie, after talking with Charlie, this is the first time I actually feel like we have a concrete plan moving forward that is about the franchise, that is about the actual world that we're trying to create, and it is about the community. It is not about Charlie. It is not about GQL. It is about us, the story, and the franchise moving forward.
yeah,
And I honestly can't remember a time where I felt that same way in that regard to like Mike and Old Admin. Um, we always talked about what if, and we always talked about the potential, but there was never, in my opinion, there was never any real drive to reach that potential. I was talking to a buddy the other day, and I was like, they're like, oh, we haven't gotten any information about story or lore or anything like that when it comes to Meta 2. And I'm like, okay, you're right, but let's take a second real quick. If you subtract everything that not just myself, but the community as a whole interjected into MetaZoo lore, story, franchise building, world building, all of it. If you subtract that, do you know what's left? Five comics and seven webtoons episodes. That is what they put into their world. That is what they gave us storyline wise. That is what they gave us character wise. That's nothing. In 3 years, that's all we got. And so I know at some point in this, I was like, oh, I want to talk about storyline and stuff like that. I'm
Go
gonna
for
make
it,
it
bro.
super, super quick. Well, I'm gonna make it super
No, you
quick.
won't. You won't. You
I
won't.
don't.
But go for it.
I don't know. Like I honestly do not know what the story or the world for MetaZoo is going to be moving forward. I felt like I had a very good grasp on what it was before when it was Mike, but even then, being completely honest, I feel I actually flushed out and created more and made things make sense than Mike did. And for me, as a content creator, someone who never got paid for MetaZoo to do more for their story and their lore than they did is crazy.
Yeah.
And I don't know if M2 is going to use the old MetaZoo storyline, the retro Zoo storyline about Sam and everything like that. I have no idea what they're doing in regards to that. But I will say this, if they don't use that storyline, I'm going to actually finish that story. If not just for myself, but for the old community. Because I talked so much about it. And I have a full list of points of exactly from the beginning of Cryptid Nation till the end. And I'll completely say this too. I've already written 10,000 words for a Cryptid Nation book. So I will make it myself if M2 doesn't do anything with it. But to try to say that M2 is boxed in to the old MetaZoo storyline when we didn't have anything MetaZoo storyline wise is crazy to me. Like, this is the only time I can think of that a TCG went bankrupt with little to no story development. And another company came in and actually bought it, not just trying to do a quick flip to make a buck, but actually to invest in it to make it what it should have been in the first place. And I mean, to be completely blunt, M2 doesn't need the Sam story. M2 doesn't need Retro Zoo storyline to succeed because at the end of the day, we were given like the first two chapters of a 30 chapter book with no explanation whatsoever. We never really got a full explanation on what casting was. We never got a full explanation on actually contracting beasties. The only time we ever saw a contracting of a beastie was when Sam accidentally contracted Dingbell. We didn't get anything past Loveland Castle. So like they're so as somebody who advocated for the story, it honestly it was when Mike said the old retro cards, there is no linear storyline. It's a hodgepodge of the entire Cryptid Nation storyline that I feel he shot himself in the foot. Because at that point, everything theory wise that I had come up with pretty much almost went out the window until we had more information to back some of it up. Because there was no chronological storyline from Cryptid Nation to Nightfall to Wilderness to UFO to Seance to any of it. That's literally what Mike came out and said. So that means that the only concrete story we actually had, like I said, were the five comic books and the seven webtoons. And at the end of the day, that's not they did not create a world. They started to, but then they floundered and they stopped. So as someone who loves the old MetaZoo storyline, as someone who dedicated their entire channel to the lore and the story of MetaZoo, don't think they have to use that to be successful because we didn't even have enough established for them to contradict anything. Like that, I always thought we had a list of bullet points. Like I thought we had a list of chapter titles. I thought we had, like, he had a Bible, quote unquote, of the story. Like the map that I worked on that had the travel lines and everything across the United States. Like I saw the map. Like that was something I had to be quiet about, honestly. But at the end of the day, the more again, the more we find out, or the more we have found out over this last year, the more I realized none of that probably existed. So like that's the one big story thing I want to actually. I just wanted to do that because like I am excited for an actual storyline from Meta 2. I'm excited for the world building from Meta 2. I'm excited for them to lay down concrete fundamental laws that this is how this world operates. Because I have strong feelings that they're going to continue that storyline. They're not going to just start it and stop it multiple times like RetroZoo did. Like that, there should have been no reason why it was 3 years, 3.5 years into MetaZoo's life, and 90% of the community had no idea who Sam was and why he was so important. That's
Yeah,
our literal main character. Can you imagine Pokemon being out for 4 years and having no clue who Ash Ketchum was?
yeah. It's ridiculous.
Like, and when you think of it like that, you're like, well, dang, okay, that makes sense. And it's just sad. But at the same time, I'm enthusiastically excited because we have literally again the name of this stream, New Year, New Beginning. This is a chance for us to regroup, come together as a community, and actually get behind this new product, this thing that a year ago, like we were saying at the beginning of the stream, we thought was dead. A year ago, we thought we were never getting anything new, MetaZoo whatsoever. And now here we are, a literal year later, and what, 7 weeks away from a brand new set.
Did you call this stream New Year's New Beginnings?
I called this stream New Year, New Beginning. Yes. Well,
You
that's at least the name that
sneaky
went across
SOB.
the. That,
I did not even
yeah, if you
notice.
go
I would know
look at
that.
the thumbnail when we're done. Yeah, if you look at the thumbnail when we're done, at the bottom it says 1 year later, but across the whole thing it actually says New Year, New Beginning. Because it's the truth. I am so incredibly excited for 2025. Like I cannot wait. Um, yeah, so that's the end of my story rant. That's the end of my story rant. I'm done. I don't know what else to say. I don't know what else to actually talk about. We
I don't
get
know.
to the
I don't know
point.
what else to say. Anyway, I'm gassed. I'm gassed.
Whatever. You're a co-host. You be quiet, Mister. I'm a guest. Um, but yeah, leave comments in
I
the
said
and leave
I'm
comments. We'll keep.
gassed.
Oh, you're. Oh, I thought you said you were a guest. I was like, ah, get out of here. Um,
Gassed. It was.
leave a
It's
comment
always
though.
good.
Let us know what you actually think of New Zoo M2. Let us know what you're most excited about. We'll probably wait a couple weeks until we get more info before we do any sort of stream or anything like that. Probably maybe do something at the end of February. Um, but we have a reason to keep Let's Talk MetaZoo going. So let's keep talking about MetaZoo. Let's keep trying to get new casters into the game. Let's be excited for the new product that we're actually going to be able to experience in about 2 months. Have a little bit of faith that M2 actually they spent so much money on this company when in reality they spent so much money on the name, the IP, the characters, the cryptids. All like it wasn't about the old product. It was about being able to continue MetaZoo and actually do it justice for us old fans and for all of the new casters they're going to be bringing in. Like I keep saying, we haven't had an influx of casters in like new people in the community since 2023. And so people aren't going to be ready for the huge influx of people I feel like we're going to get over the next couple months. And you can already see it actually, like on Whatnot. You have new streamers popping up selling old MetaZoo product because they hear that MetaZoo's actually coming back. So you're going to actually, there's going to be so many more eyes on M2 than there ever were on original MetaZoo. And I still feel like we aren't ready for any sort of marketing campaign M2 has for MetaZoo because we never had one. We never had an actual MetaZoo ad before. So I'm interested to see how the next couple weeks specifically play out. I was part of the newer crowd. It did kind of get sequestered. Yeah, see, I'm excited to see the new product, but I need the original story to be finished. I feel you, Mel, and like I said, I'm waiting to actually
Hang on a
see what
second.
M2 does with the story.
The
Um,
original story email barely even started, so
to
you're
be
never going to
honest
get the
with you,
original
you
story.
know the original story because you've gotten it from Mike all the way up to Loveland Castle. So that is the only thing that has actually ever been established, and the
Yeah,
only thing that I am aware of that was ever written. So yeah, but like I said, I have faith that M2 is going to do MetaZoo justice because they wouldn't have spent the amount of money that they did if they didn't have a plan and if they weren't focused, like I always say, on literally the longevity. I've used that word for 2 or 3 years now, and it is honestly the one thing that is the most important is the longevity of the franchise. And as long as we can keep that projected up, we're golden. That's all it is. So I don't know. I'm spent. I don't have anything else to talk about. I think Dean
neither
is
do I.
too. All right. Well, you guys are amazing. Thank you for thank you for my American friends for jumping in here. This being so early, it's like it's almost 8 a.m. now over here on the East Coast. I know it's getting close to midnight over where you are though in Australia. Thanks for actually working with us too. We had to switch the stream to today instead of like yesterday because we're running into power difficulties. So yeah, thanks everybody for working on it. Like I said, I'm extremely excited to actually be back doing this, and we wanted to make sure we did a stream this week on the same day because this is a year to the week of our last broadcast, which we thought was our last broadcast. Um, so thanks, thank us. Like I said, thank you to everybody jumping in. Thank you for everybody that actually is going to watch this after it's been recorded. Leave a comment down below, like I said, in the comment section. Let me know what you're most excited about when it comes to Meta 2, and let me know your thoughts. And yeah, we'll catch you guys hopefully in a couple weeks or so. Like I said, we'll probably do another one towards the end of the month. But I don't know. It's always awkward on ending these things. I don't know. I don't know how to do it.
Peace.
Peace. All right, later, guys.